And I'm so glad everybody is here this morning. I know you have a lot of choices on a Saturday morning, including going through and sleeping in, which is always a good thing. So before we begin, I'd like to introduce our GAE president, Lisa Morgan. And Lisa, would you like to bring greetings before I go through and read the meeting policy? And you're muted, my friend. I know you're going to not appreciate my saying that.
I'm just going to say, of course, it's Saturday morning and I've just had one sip of my coffee. So, good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending this morning. I hope everyone gets a lot out of this professional development. We are very happy that our professional development committee is now offering ongoing professional development for our members, and would just say thank you to Karen and her committee for making sure this is happening. But also to those of you that are attending this morning, if you have suggestions of something that you feel is very important, please reach out and let us know what those sessions are that you would like to see us offer. So again, thank you for being a member of GAE. Thank you for being here. And I hope you all have a very restful weekend. So you will have a great week with students next week.
Thank you, Lisa
Karen?
Morgan. Always a pleasure I welcome your attendance and your being at all things GAE. Always great to see you. I am Karen Solheim, and I am currently chair of the GAE Professional Development Committee, and we do have a policy we read for all meetings. So here is the policy language. While we welcome all public school employees, this event is only for GAE members and staff. So if you're not a GAE member or GAE staff, please sign in the chat by putting your name, personal email address, cell phone number, and school system. We appreciate your interest in GAE, and we hope you will join our organization today by visiting joingae.org. And everyone, please note that you must receive prior permission from the GAE Executive Committee or the GAE Executive Director before recording audio or video of this meeting. Social media posts concerning this meeting shall not contain information about the specific content of the meeting, although the sharing of general information about GAE and GAE events is encouraged. Please be courteous to other attendees and request their permissions before posting photographs containing their images. And if you have any questions about social media posting of GAE events, please contact the GAE Executive Committee or the GAE Executive Director. Again, so glad everyone is here today. And I think this program was billed as Teresa Hines would be presenting. And Teresa is a classroom instructor, and she was called away to the social studies fair this morning. So that is the could be better news, but the good news is I have been the recipient of a number of GAE best practices grants that we're going to talk about later on. So I hope you will get information that you can use as we go through this presentation. So I'm hoping there'll be a little bit of interaction as we go. And could you put a yes or raise your hand in the chat if you have gone through and applied for a GAE grant or GAE scholarship in the past? Do we have any people in here who are going through and availing themselves of free money? Well, I don't see a plethora of hands going up. And I'm not quite sure why that is, because free money is a good thing. If would somebody like to share either in the chat or just I think we're a small enough group at 35. Anybody want to share why you haven't written a GAE grant or scholarship before? Any thoughts about why? I think a lot of people need their morning coffee. Is somebody sharing?
I didn't know we had any
Yeah,
grants.
I was gonna state the same thing. I just joined GAE, so this is my first time learning of the
Oh,
opportunity.
well, you can't apply for something you didn't know what existed. So, again, anybody else you didn't know? Any other reasons? Sometimes it's just time too, having the time to go through and um, fill out the application. But I hope, I pray that we've streamlined the process. And by the end of our time together this morning, in a little less than an hour, that you'll go through and go, oh, I can do this. GAE does have foundation grants and scholarships. My contact information is here, and it'll be at the end of the presentation. And if all goes well, and technology stays our friend, I'll go through and put it in the chat also. So the place to go and get started with GAE scholarships and grant is the GAE website. And if you don't have the website address memorized, it probably should be something if you want to know all things GAE. It's real simple. There at the bottom, the GAE.org. And when you go to the website, like all websites, um, a lot of websites, there are a lot of pull down, pull out kinds of information. And so when you go to professional excellence, you'll see some other things that happen with GAE. And again, if you're not familiar with any of these, and while you're sipping a cup of morning coffee on another day, you just might want to take a look. But the last one listed on the professional excellence pull-out menu is scholarships and grants. And so when you go to that page, you'll see that these are offered by the GAE Foundation. And there is information there about what the GAE Foundation was. This was a dream of one of our GAE past presidents that we would have a foundation. And Lisa, can you give me the amount that comes out of collections of GAE, not dues, but collections of GAE money that goes to the foundation? You're muted, my friend.
Of course I am. Certified members, $2 each year goes to the foundation for the foundation itself. And then $1 goes for our aspiring educator scholarships, membership scholarships, so that our aspiring educators can be members. If you are an ESP, which is all our non-certified classified employees members throughout the state, it is 1/2 of those amounts.
Thank you, Lisa. And so it's not part of your dues dollars. It's added on. So you actually are going through and putting money into the foundation. But hopefully you will be taking money out of the foundation as you go through and write a scholarship or a grant. And for the scholarships, we're going to talk about that portion first. These are the people who are eligible: certified educators, our college juniors and seniors, our high school seniors, and our educational support professionals. So hopefully you see a category listed there and you go, oh yes, I can apply for that. And when you go to the GAE website that I just showed you, it tells you again who is eligible. And of course, there's the click on the form portion. And we have one form as of now for all the different GAE scholarship categories. And so it was to kind of streamline the process. And the scholarship application forms all start out the same. So you can see here that we want to capture some demographic data. And last four of your social, I think the old form had your entire social security number on it, which goes through and makes me just a little bit nervous, but just some basic demographic data. And you can see that the deadline is March 31st. So you still have a good amount of time to apply. And it does say to submit this application form and anything else as PDFs. We're going into the electronic age. And that if you don't submit everything, then we cannot evaluate your what you send in. So it needs to be complete. So I think that's pretty easy to follow. And then each of the different areas, and again, this is on the form, tells you what else you need to go through and um, sorry, I'm reading the chat too. Tells you what you need to submit. And Stephanie, spot on question. Can you apply for a grant and a scholarship at the same time? Yes, ma'am. There's nothing in the fine print that says you cannot do that. Thank you for asking that great question. And for most of these different categories of scholarships, it's 5, and you'll see in a minute 6 things that are being asked, but we're going to go through and ask if you're a member of GAE, and if you're not, these are for GAE members. And you can see here for the certified educator scholarship for an advanced degree, who is your current employer? Where would you like to go? Where are you planning to use this money? And then all of these have an essay component. And you'll see up to 1,000 words. And this one is, why have you chosen? And what do you hope to accomplish as a result of this advanced degree? And then 2 letters of recommendation. And on this particular one, the 2 letters are, it doesn't say from whom. So, you could choose someone who is a supervisor, a principal, some sort of administrator. You might choose a colleague who has known you for X amount of time and can speak highly of what you do in the profession. So the choice is up to you. If you are, if you are going through and the scholarship for the junior or senior for future teachers, again, we want these individuals to be aspiring ed members, the college they plan to attend, and then the essay, and again, having to do with the profession. And then these 2 letters of recommendation, it tells you where one needs to come from, and then submit an official copy of your college university transcript. So if you have children who are going through and are applying for college as a junior, or a junior and senior in college, nothing precludes your children for going through and applying for this. And thank you, Nayada Gamble. Karen's iPhone said, how much is the scholarship for? Great questions. This is for up to $1,000 per year. So, and again, nothing precludes you from applying year after year. And it says, are those with a provisional certification eligible? Provisional is on the state salary schedule, right, Lisa? Okay, so I'm getting a nod, and she's already unmuted, but we're getting a nod and she already answered that in the chat. Great. And then this is high school, junior, senior, and you can see the pattern continues here for the high school senior scholarship. This is a good piece to share with your school counselors in your system, because again, a lot of people don't know that seniors can apply, high school seniors can apply for the up to $1,000 per year. So this is kind of a good way to publicize some things that GAE does. And we want parent, guardian names, name of high school, where you plan to go. Again, the essay, 2 letters of recommendation, and it tells you at least one from a teacher, counselor, or other person, and then an official copy of the high school transcript. And then the ESPs, or Educational Support Professional Scholarship. Again, here you do have to be a member, who you're employed by, where you want to go, the essay. And again, these are letters of recommendation where you get to decide who you want to ask. So when you're going through and you're submitting the entire packet by March 31st electronically, there are some things that are also on the form. This is all on that one form to go through and to keep in mind. So, and the people judging this form are people on the GAE Foundation board. So Lisa and I and the senior ESP director will be judging. So it's a committee about 6 or 7 people, and we will receive your information electronically. So submitting only one-sided PDFs will make things really easy. Please type everything. Please go through and the other required documents, ask people to type. And when you're asking for your letters of recommendation, or when you are writing your essay, a legible font. We have read letters of recommendations that are in the fanciest font you could ever imagine, and the most difficult font to read. So 12-point font would be good, and double space would be lovely. And you'll see here additional information. You'll be notified by the end of May. Again, that $1,000 award up to. And then all application materials will go through and be property of the foundation. And then if you are on the foundation board, we don't have nepotism, so you can't go through and apply, but I don't think that applies to anybody else on this particular Zoom other than to Lisa and myself. And if you have questions, there is contact information there. And lastly, not transferable. You can't go through and get the up to the $1,000 and then go through and say, oh, no, I meant it to go through and be for someone else. That's not going to work. So, and then at the very end, also on this form, you're going to check which scholarship you're applying for. And if you're applying for more than one somehow, like if you do have a high school junior, senior, I keep saying that. If you do have a high school senior in your household, that would necessitate a second form to be filled out. And then you go through and you sign and date. And so then at the bottom of this is the back side that has the different parts of where, which scholarship that we just went over, or what you're applying for. It says, can the $1,000 be used for the next school year if awarded this school year? Our thoughts were that if you received the award by May 31st, that you would use the money for the upcoming school year. So that was our thoughts in all of this. for the $1,000, up to $1,000 scholarship. Thank you for the question. Okay. So there's also a grant at this point in time, a best practices grant that you can apply for. Again, that is on the GAE website. Very easy to find both of these scholarships and grants at www.gae.org/grants. And when you go through and, well, let me talk about this first. 90% of teachers, according to a survey, spend their own money on school supplies. And let me take the question in the chat. Somebody says, where do we submit the form and the recommendation letters? And I will go back very quickly. And on the form itself, it says to submit it to foundation@gae.org. And Karen says, I'm in the process of applying to an EDD, but I won't know. Yes, you can still apply, I believe, for the scholarship. Now, of course, if you don't get accepted, you would have to return the money if it were awarded to you. Okay, can you go back to the grant page? Here I go. Good. So on the grants, on the best practices grant form, 90% use their own money, and we just got a testimonial in the chat. Now, I maintain that if all educators said, no, we're not going to spend any money, that maybe our wonderful elected officials would come through and give us money to use in the classroom, but then we care about our students so much. Guess, before the pandemic, what was the average out-of-pocket amount per year? Anybody have a guess? I got 300. It's a little higher than 300. Exactly, Miss Shakira, $500. That's a ton of money. I'm going to go back to the scholarship questions at the end, if that's okay, Tamika Glass, because I want to keep a little momentum talking about the grants, and then I promise you I'll go back if the question doesn't get answered in the meantime. And for the previous school year, anybody have a number of what the average estimated amount is? Well, it's higher. Well, thanks, Ms. Hatchett. It actually is a little bit lower than that. That was a great guess. $800. That is a ton of money. And just like with the GAE scholarships, it's up to $1,000 for your classroom per year. And I think I wrote grants for at least 5, if not more, years from the GAE Foundation, and most helpful to have that extra money for use in your classroom. So you'll see on the foundation application form for the grant, the same kind of thing happening. It's one form in terms of filling it out, and it's very similar to the scholarship form. We ask for that basic demographic information. And again, you have to be a member of GAE. This isn't just for other people. And what your current assignment is and the number of students that will be impacted by this grant. So you're trying to just go through and paint a picture. And then, have you been awarded a previous best practices foundation grant? And again, the same deadline. So you do have time to go through and to write a grant. And whoops, so sorry, let me go back one. Formatting considerations. Same thing, we're not trying to mix things up. One-sided PDFs, type, Arial time or Times New Roman. I like Arial, it's simple, double space, same deadline, and then same notification period, May 31st. And up to 1,000, everything remains with the foundation. If you're on the foundation board, you can't play. And the same email address, that's also the submission address, and the same phone number. And again, you can't transfer this. You can't go through and say, well, I'm not teaching 8th grade social studies anymore. I want to give this to my GAE buddy on my team. It doesn't work that way. And then, of course, at the very end of the grant, you're going to go through and sign and date your grant application. So it tells you here on the form, again, this is a one-page form on the website, who is eligible. And we expanded the eligibility this year to include our education support professionals who have wonderful ideas and are interacting with students also. And we also, you don't have to be actively teaching in the classroom, media specialist, social worker, counselor. And then the last sentence of the eligibility part, you can't use it for your salary, your stipend, any other form of compensation for the applicant. And you can't use it for anything else that you didn't put in the budget for it. You can't go through and say, I have $8 left over, I'm going to Subway. That's not going to work. And then it tells you what to include in your best practices project plan. So why are you doing this? What's the objective of the project? And then you're going to wax prosaically about how the implementation of the project will impact and enhance student success. The description of the activities that will be conducted. What are you going to do in this process with the money? What's number 4, the timeline for doing that? What's the specific budget? Like, you just can't say, I want the $1,000, up to the $1,000. How have you planned already you're going to be spending this money? And then, have you gotten any other financial assistance or grants for this project? For example, if it's a $5,000 project, and you're getting 1,000 from GAE, if you've gotten 4,000 from somebody else, how is that working? And then how are you going to evaluate this project that you put into place to make sure that it's met with success? Its question says, do you have to wait until May every year to get the money? And the answer is yes. So when you are writing this, you are actually writing it for the next school year. Because if you're awarded the money in May, schools are generally out by that point in time. So you are writing it for the next school year. So you might want to, if you don't know that you're teaching 4th grade math, but you know you want money for X, you might write the grant fairly generically, so that if you got switched to 5th grade math, you still could be able to use the manipulatives perhaps you were asking for in the grant. The other thing I would say about the 1 through 7 that I did not do in a grant that I wrote is I would put the answers to these questions or these items in the order that they are listed. So I would start with the objective of the project, and then go through in that order, so that the evaluators can clearly see these are the items, etc. And then I would also bold and just have a header. So again, your evaluators can easily see what you are talking about in each section. And the question in the up, and Lisa's already answered it. So thank you, Lisa. I appreciate that. And so to me, and we're not going to go through this exercise, the hardest part of going through, and for me, was to figure out, yes, I knew I could use up to $1,000 for things in my classroom. I mean, no offense, that's kind of a non-brainer. But going through and figuring out how I was going to come up with a plan to go through and get that money and not just say, oh, I want $1,000 for X, Y, and Z was the hardest part. And so this is just kind of a little graphic representation, and hopefully you can see different things in each one of these, where you do really have to look at things in a new way. And hopefully you've seen these optical illusions before. We have in the left one, somebody looking face on and profile simultaneously. In the center, we have the old woman looking down onto her chin, and we have a young woman looking to the left away. And then did anybody figure out in the last one what is the hidden message there? Well,
I've seen it before.
yeah, you don't get to play if you've seen it before. If you start at the top and you look at it on the vertical, it looks like a face, but it's also the word liar. So that's your fun visualization for today. So you really do have to see new things in a new way. And this is just an exercise that I do also, where I ask people to count the number of F's, the letter F, that they see in things. And does anybody want to do a quick count and put a number in the chat that you see it? How many letter F's you have? And it is a number between 1 and 10. I got some people playing. And I have thank you so much. I see a couple people saying 3. And it's really easy when you go through and you have the letter F either at the beginning or the end of a word. But what we don't do is with the word of, our brain is processing it as seeing the V or saying the V sound, and we tend to just miss those. So again, all of this to just say that you need to go through and look at things in a new way. So you have to come up with an idea. And one way to come up with an idea in this day of technology, I'm not trying to tell you to be a lurker, but if you go, this is on the GAE Foundation scholarship page of our website. We have published the previous winners. And if you go back to the older ones here, we tended to put the person's name and the school system they're connected with. And so it would be okay, I think in this day and time, to see if that person is still teaching there 10 years later or employed there, and say, I'm a GAE member and, I'm writing a foundation grant, a scholarship. Sorry, I'm writing a foundation grant. And, what did you write yours on? Would you mind sharing? So, knowledge is power, and just seeing what somebody else has done. And hopefully, even in this group, you might share ideas of what you might be wanting to do for a foundation grant. This is one, and you can tell I've been retired for 12 years, and so this is one of the older ones because I'm not sure they even make DVD players and VCRs, but I needed, for my classroom of American Lit students, I needed materials so that my students would be familiar with American Lit. because I had no thoughts whatever that my students would actually read all of these wonderful pieces of American literature. And so I thought I would do some literature groups and have students be familiar at least with some sort of basic plot that tied into the famous piece of American literature. So this is just a sample of my line item budget. And, you know, I tried to be as specific as possible in what I was doing. And I also knew that I didn't want to have to go and check out from the media center a television and TVs and DVD players. So I did the combo sets. They used to make those. And you'll see too that I came in at $996.13. My thought process is you're going to write a grant for $100. It's like we can get up to 1,000. Let's kind of maximize the ask in all of this. And then I included at that point in time additional information. Just because I wasn't on the PD committee at that point in time, I wasn't on the foundation board. I wanted the reviewers to just see and know what the impact of the grant was going to be, what my classrooms looked like. And then I also, you don't have to do this, but I also just said this would not be a one-off in this grant. What I had gone through and asked for would be something that at that point in time could go through and be used over and over again. And Stephanie says, do you have to spend the money directly on what you say in the grant? And yes, you do have to go through, if you have a line item budget, I would go through and say, yes, be as specific as possible. I could have probably gotten away with saying I'm going to buy 10 videos at that point in time and not naming them, but there's a balance for me in writing a grant of trying to convince the evaluator I know exactly what I'm doing, but yet making it generic enough in case circumstances change. And Shakira says, how many people can be awarded the grant and the scholarship? And Miss Morgan has answered that. And there is a budget of the foundation board. And we're doing this workshop because I think writing the grants and the scholarships are best kept secrets among GAE members. And we're trying to spread the word so the money does get used up and used. So please do share this information with your other GAE friends and colleagues. And then I had an evaluation plan. This is for another grant that I wrote. My wonderful Board of Education decided that we should not take field trips. And I just really believe that going through and students learn a lot by going through and being out and about. And so where I was, we could make a 10 a.m. matinee at the Atlanta Shakespeare Tavern. And so when I was teaching English literature, I wanted to go through and take my students. And so I just funded that particular experience so that, again, my students would have some knowledge of a Shakespeare play. And the Atlanta Shakespeare Playhouse is a wonderful venue for their learning about Shakespeare. And again, I came in right at $1,000. The substitute was paid, yes, $60 a day. But anyway, it just was a win-win. And again, when you're awarded these grants and scholarships, this is a good win-win opportunity to share this with your administration, with your board. You know, see if the local reporter will do GAE member wins scholarship, GAE member awarded grant. So this is a good way to show that what GAE is doing for its members and for students, more importantly. Okay, and then again, this is on the form. If you are awarded the grant, you have to implement it in accordance with the plan submitted, and you have to have the itemized report. You have to submit one if it's requested, and so keep your receipts. And I think too, and Lisa, you can yell at me if I'm wrong. If, for example, I said I was going to buy a copy of Moby Dick for my classroom, but instead I had to substitute the Crucible, and I wrote that up in my itemized report, I don't think anybody's going to come back and say you committed fraud. You know, if there was a reason for the exchange, the changing the data. Lisa, you want to comment on that before I get in trouble?
Yes, I think something reasonable, like you had to switch the name of the book. I'm thinking like maybe you wanted to did manipulatives working with fractions, and the particular manipulative that you had said, I'm going to use this one, and then it was out of stock, so you got another one. Something like that is fine. I think where we would have concerns is if you said you were going to buy math manipulatives and instead you send us a report and say that you bought copy paper.
Right. Yeah. I think if you're in the ballpark, and I think your word reasonable is a great way to go through and um to if somebody were going through and writing up their itemized report if it's requested. And I'm going to finish this presentation, and then I'll go back and do questions in the chat again. I've realized we're about 15 minutes out from our end of our time together. If you don't spend the money, then you've got to return it to GAE. Again, we're not talking about a nice long weekend somewhere. And if you're requested an evaluation report, and again, if we wanted to go through and you're asked to share how wonderful this experience was with other GAE members in our GAE publications. And then there's a checklist at the bottom of the application that you have the applications completed, signed, and dated, and you have your best practices plan enclosed. So I want to talk just generically. This is not GAE Foundation grant specific, but if you're writing any kind of grant, it needs to be clear, because what you're submitting when the team is evaluating the grants and the scholarships, we're not going to call you up and say, is this what you meant? I don't understand. It has to go through and stand on paper. And this is where you go through perhaps on the clarity part, and you get a friend, a spouse, a partner to read it and say, hey, honey, does this, well, maybe not to your friend, you don't say, hey, honey, dear friend, does this make sense? And especially somebody who's not in the profession, because if it makes sense to them, then it probably will make sense to the evaluation team. It's precise. Again, you know, that balance between not locking yourself into too tight a box, but, you know, you could make a reasonable change if something were not available, and it's persuasive. Why should your grant be funded? Why is your $1,000 needed? And when you're going through and writing your grant, and you're using your 12-point Arial or Times New Roman font, have a catchy title. So I could have gone through and entitled mine, either binoculars on American literature or watching American literature. And I'm hoping you're saying, oh, the binoculars, what does that mean? Oh, maybe they're, and trying to entice the reader to read more of the grant. Or I could have entitled the other one, Going on the Field Trip, or All the World's a Stage. And hopefully, the catchy title kind of maybe wins in the reviewer. And other helpful hints. We have the March 31st deadline. Probably don't want to wait till that day unless you've done this a lot or you're really not an incubator like I am in terms of producing something. So again, I think you have plenty of time to get some ideas together and to write this up. So last minute stuff, probably not. And then the next one is have multiple people look at it. I'm my own worst proofreader in terms of, and thank goodness for electronic tricks like Grammarly, etc. Just make sure you don't have like double words in there or something's misspelled. Get a fresh set of eyes, look at it, or sometimes people read things backwards to make sure that something isn't misspelled. Make sure you've checked all the boxes figuratively in terms of what is being asked, especially in the GAE project plan, that you have all the items in there. And then it does need to, we are taking them only electronically. We had a huge discussion and people were submitting them by a deadline we had in the past. And then the US mail was going through and not going through and getting it to us in a timely manner. And I don't know if you've had the email experience I've had, but sometimes I think I hit click send and then a couple days later, I chagrin and look in my draft folder and see something there. So make sure you actually did go through and hit the send button when you are submitting this. And reading carefully. Again, go through and make sure that you have read things very carefully when you're submitting it. And the formatting. If it says 12 and it says Times New Roman or Arial, please do not use something else that you particularly care for or is fancy. And another mistake is just if it says to sign and date the application, you don't need this many signatures, but just make sure you have signed and dated the application. And we've talked about proofreading. And I'm going to go through, I hope, and show you a phrase. And I hope somebody will put in the chat what you think you saw for about 5 seconds. So here we go. Oh, sorry. Don't do that yet. I'm sorry. Here we go. Proofread your grant for the following. Hopefully you realize that I quite did not proofread this at all. Spelling mistakes, the use of repeated words, and grammatical errors you might have make. So just trying to illustrate that grammar stuff does matter. And now we're going to go to 3 lines of a phrase. And I hope I'll show it for 5 seconds and then tell me, if you would, put in the chat if you're participatory, what you think you saw. And I'll look at the chat here in a minute. Anybody playing? Or did anybody, I got, yep. Thank you. Oh, good. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But let me go back just a second. And yes, it was in all caps. And so you don't want to yell at anybody. And the people who put pears in the springtime did exactly what I was leading you down the path to do, because it really says pears in the springtime. But a great illustration how at least I go through and just skip over the little things in all of this. Let's do one more. And I'll show you a phrase again for 5 seconds. And those who would like to play in the chat, that would be wonderful. And if you'll take a moment. Yep, you guys are y'all are doing exactly. Nice, 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 nice. Once you were shown the pattern, you saw the double at. And this is a good illustration too, just from learning theory, that once you do something, you see the pattern and you do it you do it over again, and hopefully don't make the same mistake. And it's like with writing these grants and the scholarships, the hardest part to me is always getting started. But once you do it and you submit it and you're awarded, you're going to hopefully go through and have grant fever and go through and go, oh, there's some free money out there. And with the free money, if you think about it too, and people sometimes give the misperception and say, oh, I can't afford to join GAE, it costs too much. Well, in my little mathematical brain, if you're going through and your dues that you're spending each year for GAE are, let's just say ballpark around the $500 mark. And then you're going through and you're getting $1,000 in a scholarship or grant. Thank you, Stephanie. Exactly the point. GA, you're making money. I mean, this is a good thing, and you're doing good things for yourself and for your students. So once you start writing them, you go through and you do have grant fever and you go, yeah, this free money, this is good. I can do this. And if you go to the grant page again, there is information there. NEA has a foundation, and NEA has foundation grants. So feel free to take a look with that as you meet with additional successes, and hopefully you will be rolling in the dough and you will just have your happy face on because you are a successful grant writer of GAE Foundation grants, or you're a scholarship recipient of our GAE Foundation scholarships. So I'm going to stop sharing, and we have about 5 minutes left. And what questions might you have that you would like answered? Money for my schooling, for my own child, and for my students who would want to pay for GAE. Yeah, right. There are a lot of opportunities to go through, and if you had a senior in high school and you had a junior and senior in college, you were going back to school and you wrote a best practices grant. You literally would be rolling in the dough. And Stephanie, yes, I think I mentioned you can apply every year for these, and Lisa answered that. And yep, Lisa, you have answered all the questions so far, I think, in the chat. Does anybody else have a question or a comment, a concern, something you would like to ask? Yes, it is juniors and seniors in college who are eligible.
Karen, I just want to put again in the chat the link. We have a monthly e-newsletter. It went out last Saturday morning on the 1st. And yes, sometimes it's long as an e-newsletter, but there's a graphic in there about the scholarships and the grants. I'm going to specifically mention today. There is also a blurb in there from last week about some training through NEA called Leaders for Just Schools that I am eligible to nominate 3 GAE members for. And There is no pay for participating in the program, but all your expenses are paid for by NEA in that program. So I'm putting the link, if you didn't get that newsletter last week, where you can sign up. That's the first one. And then I will put the link to our February e-newsletter that you can open and see it online. So if
Perfect.
you're
That's
not getting
wonderful,
those,
Lisa.
please click that link and sign up. And if you get an email that says you signed up for Kevin Pearson's newsletter, Kevin Pearson is our communications at GAE. So yes, you want to then on that email say, yes, I know I'm signing up for that newsletter.
Great. Thanks, Lisa.
And I think
Go
Connie
ahead.
just asking me if you have to be currently teaching for the Leaders for Just Schools program. You must be a member of GAE. I it's not a requirement that you be a classroom teacher.
Thank you. And I'm going to share, again, this morning's presentation was from your PD, your GAE PD Professional Development Committee. And we presented this particular presentation, a version of it in February. And so we have our dates. And again, information like this will be in the GAE Voices. We have our remaining dates for this program year coming up, and we're going to present on the same presentation or the same content on Tuesdays and then on Saturday mornings. So hopefully people attend both if you want to. And for March and April, we have Alex Blue, who's a PD committee member, talking about building resilience in the workplace. So again, look at GAE communications. We tend to sign up people, as you know, through Mobilize. And I hope this morning was wonderful for you. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend. It is 10:30. We usually try and have a on-time start and an on-time stop. And I always like to end with thank you for what you are doing in public education. And thank you for being a GAE member. Thank you for being here today. Have a good weekend, folks. Bye.
Hi, I have a question.
Yes.
I'm not sure if it was answered in the chat. I wanted to know if I apply for one while I'm here at the school and I transfer to a new school, can I take that fund with me to use on my students there?
The grant belongs to you. It does not
Okay.
belong to the school system. So that's the long answer for yes, you can.
Okay. Okay.
And
Thank you.
and if I have any additional questions, I can reach out to you all, right?
Please.
Okay.
Yes, please.
That,
We
I,
grew
I,
up.
I, yeah.
I also
Thank
had a
you. I'm
question as
going to.
well.
Okay.
What
Thank
if
you.
I'm currently enrolled in a college already and needed that extra help? Because like right now I'm paying for school. So how does that work?
Well, again, you would receive the award for by May 31st. Lisa, I'm going to let you comment.
Yes, if you're already in, I'm guessing you're in an advanced degree program, then yes, you could apply now. And if you're still going to be in that program next year, then you would have that for next year.
Okay.
But I
Yes.
finished in the summer.
Okay.
Well, and so you would be in school this summer, so you could use the scholarship towards this summer.
How
Okay.
do I apply? Was in those two links that you sent?
Yeah, no, yes. The link to the e-newsletter has a graphic that goes to the grants and scholarships, and it's on the GAE website under professional excellence.
Thank you.
Yes.
And great presentation. Awesome.
No, well, thank you. It's a
Same
labor
here.
of love. The free money always was a good thing for me. So, Lisa, thank you for being here. this morning.
Thank you.
We
Thank you.
we continue to talk. I appreciate you. Have a good weekend.
Yes.